Okay, good evening, Council. Welcome very much to the meeting of Wednesday, May 11th, 2020. We'll begin the meeting at 7:01. Today's meeting is being held as a virtual meeting due to the declared emergency. And we hope that those words will not be required in the near future, we hope. This meeting may be streamed live as well as recorded and published on the Southwest Middlesex YouTube channel. Before we begin this meeting, we'll begin by acknowledging that the land upon which we meet is the traditional territory of First Nations people who have a long-standing relationship with the land, water, and region of Southwest Middlesex. We convey our respect to our Indigenous neighbors and thank them for their contributions to our culture, our community, our past, and partnerships in the future. Council, is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest? I would like to declare pecuniary interest on 8D1 regarding reimbursement for payment on the historical murals, at which time, Deputy Mayor, if you'd be kind enough to share it through that, and I'll shut my video off and I'll let you conduct that portion of business. Any other declarations of conflict of interest? Seeing none, we'll move on. Recommendation, the agenda has been circulated. If there are no errors or additions, a motion to accept the agenda as circulated. I'll take that motion if there's one. Thank you, Mark. And a seconder for that. Councillor Bartlett. Questions? Moved by Councillor McGill, seconded by Bartlett. All in favor? Carried. We are now on delegations and presentations. And the first is the branding identity presentation. Council, staff, public, we welcome Melanie and Caleb from Mad Hatter and look forward to the presentation of the findings and the results that materialized from the creative process that was undertaken to formulate a branding identity in Southwest Middlesex. Variants of opinion are always found in any creative concept. And such was the case in determining the feel and ideas from our community stakeholders of Southwest Middlesex selection of an analysis of a branding logo and tagline. The selection process went beyond the expected timelines that were set, and public engagement was intense and supplemented with new participants toward the end of the process to ensure that community members had substantial input. That being said, there was a determination of fit from the committee, and we're very pleased to have the presentation this evening. I'm delighted that the packages were available to council. This committee was extensive and was formed by a group that could best be described as vital to our community. I will not mention them by names, but they are truly involved in Southwest Middlesex in many capacities of business, service, and volunteerism. The recommendation before you largely came about by the attributes of Southwest Middlesex and the objectives of having a vibrant, modern, and progressive symbol of identity. I will call on Sheila to better introduce the presenters and guide us through the background findings and the results of the discoveries. Thank you, Sheila. You take it ahead.
Okay, thank you. Most of you have already had the opportunity to meet Mad Hatter's Technology Incorporated's representatives, Caleb and Melanie, during our sessions. And they are a creative agency specializing in marketing and technology and have a history of working with municipalities in marketing, planning, branding, identity design, campaign creation, social media, and digital media strategies. Their goal is to ensure our identity is creatively designed with established branding guidelines and alignment to core values. They have worked with many organizations, and this is not an inclusive list, but TVO, United Way, YMCA, Toronto Police Services, Spruce Lodge, and many educational institutions such as Conestoga College, York and Dalhousie Universities, as well as Huron at Western in London. They have worked on government emergency communications for COVID-19, as well as Canada Summer Games We Rally campaigns. Municipal experience includes Lennox and Addington, Region of Waterloo, City of Kitchener, Town of Smiths Falls, and Township of Stone Mills. I've spent the last 4 months plus with them, and I feel they've done a really great job of incorporating the needs of our growing community by reviewing documents such as the Economic Development Strategy, our CIP, and our Recreation Master Plan, and then by spending time with our community participants to gather information about our community. They have built a brand that reflects the information shared in those sessions. And with that, I will hand the presentation over to Mad Hatter. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila.
Introduction. And for a little bit of background, because I don't think we had much time to even share a lot of the work that we've done when we first engaged with some of our stakeholders. We were very focused on the work at hand. So as mentioned, we are a creative agency that does work with a lot of municipalities, public sector, private sector corporations. We're very passionate about our work. I would say that all of us are perfectionists. We care a lot about our work, so we go above and beyond to make sure that the work that we're producing is of high quality. And we're a very collaborative team. So we work together with our clients to make sure that we're producing something together. And I think that's very fundamental to our process. So I know that with council agendas, there's obviously a lot on the board to go over this evening, so I don't want to stray too far from the presentation or getting in towards the visuals. So Caleb's going to provide an overview of just some of the exercises that we used to actually draw upon to gather information about your community and what was important to members of your community. So he's going to walk you through the process that we used and the things that we did to kind of pull that information and why we pulled that information. And then we're going to move into the branding and identity visuals.
Awesome. So yeah, I just quickly want to just go over and talk more about the process and kind of where we landed and how we got there. There was a lot of work that went into what we did. So I'm just looking to, I guess, highlight some of that we've and how we got there. So essentially, the process that we kind of took for this engagement, we use a process called design thinking and stakeholder engagement. And we use design thinking through, it's a very common practice, but we've actually adopted it very early, 10 plus years ago is when we first started doing design thinking. It's usually typically a fun process for our clients to actually come in and spend the day there. It's a playful way to actually get out a lot of information because as a marketing agency, obviously we're professionals in our field. But what we're looking to do is actually extrapolate all the information about our clients and become experts in that field. So whether it's in the housing market or in construction or in a web project, so we always use design thinking to pull out information and become have a better understanding of, for this case, what it actually means to be a community member within Southwest Middlesex. So and then from there. So due to it being COVID and all the protocols, unfortunately, we couldn't have a day at the office where we're actually able to kind of hang out for the day and get this information. So we resorted onto an online version of it. Usually there's a lot of sticky notes. So here we kind of had to adopt and we used a program called Mural. And for a lot of council members, a lot of stuff that I'm going over will seem very familiar in terms of what we did. So bear with me. But basically we walked through and had various different sessions. So in total, we probably had around anywhere from 10 to 15 sessions. In the early stages, there were 2-hour sessions where we're working through and working through different exercises, again, to pull out information of what it means to be a community member and what it means to be a part of Southwest Middlesex. So to show an example of kind of what that looks like. So for the first one was kind of just a feeler. What do you love most about living/working in Southwest Middlesex? Jotting down those ideas. And then even the second one here, picking an image that best relates to you and what it means to be Southwest Middlesex. So from here, we kind of established that there was a lot of imagery that was selected that was tailored to around growth, a lot of family, and the overall agricultural industry came out as well. So these were all sessions that were held and aggregated into kind of one page here. And from here, another example of an exercise that we did was going over what Southwest is and what Southwest Middlesex isn't. So you can see here, just definitely is. It's small, it's quiet. A few things that came out, like a few interesting came out, like things like bird watching. And then just going over as well things that Southwest definitely is not. So we were able to kind of hit home and get a better idea for as we're creating these visuals and creating these branding and overall brand identity. And a huge important aspect when you're creating a brand is going over different archetypes. So what was important for this slide was actually going over different archetypes. And archetypes are essentially basically the heartbeat of your campaign and what makes you relate to a campaign or relate to a brand. So the most common archetype, which actually popped out through these sessions, was the innocent. So an example that everyone actually knows is usually Pure Michigan. So that's an example of a purely innocent campaign and archetype that came out. So from here, we were able to establish that the top 3 archetypes that we're looking to develop a brand around was the every person, which was over in the corner over here, the caregiver, which is the bottom left, and then the innocent. So just like the Pure Michigan, the caregiver, and you can see logos or companies that are following that kind of archetype. And then, so these were just the stakeholder engagement that was involved with core members that were selected. And then from there, we aggregated all that information. And basically we became professionals in your field and looking to resonate more with you guys. And we did a lot of market research as well. So from there, we did basically a scour of what municipalities' current trends in the industry that we took. So we came up with different kind of market research and what municipalities are doing in Ontario, throughout Canada, and all throughout North America. And then from there, we developed a mood board where we were actually able to kind of establish, hey, this is what a lot of people are doing, and kind of getting a general feel of an actual direction that we're looking to go in when it comes to actually developing a brand specifically for Southwest Middlesex. And from there, we were able to kind of create the visuals. And then again, aggregating and getting on that feedback so as we kind of present the mood board, gathering that feedback, just like we did with the internal stakeholder engagement. And all through along the process was gathering information, tweaking and tailoring things to figure out and landing to a logo and a brand that where we've actually resided. And this was just what was covered from us. So these were kind of the branding guidelines that were given to us on the outset through the RFP process. So Mad Hatter was selected amongst different proposals. And basically we were set these guidelines of creating a brand that was looking to kind of tailor to those 5 main things. So uniformity, community identity, pride, flexibility, and authenticity. And from the actual feedback in that internal stakeholder engagement, some of the trends that we kind of pulled out from that board that I previously showed you, the 5 main things that we were looking to kind of hit home on was really just looking for a brand that was more modern, again, forward thinking and future kind of play together. And speaking more to that growth as well. Growth was a common thing that came out through these sessions. Something that was very youthful, as well as inviting. So something that would a brand and identity that if you saw it on the side of the road, that you would say, hey, you know what, that makes me want to actually go to this place and visit this place. And then we also covered as well just the kind of main things that you want to look for when you're actually creating a logo. And these were also just reminded for the stakeholder engagements that were involved as part of the process to, hey, these are kind of the things that you need to keep in mind when you're creating a logo. So obviously you want it to be clear. You don't want to have anything blurry or any of that nature. You want to make sure that it's versatile so that it can be applied to different marketing tools. And kind of where we've landed, you'll be able to see that through the creative materials that we've created. You're able to actually there's a lot of different pieces, whether it's on the corner of a shirt, on a golf hat. It needs to be versatile and be able to use it in different cases. Obviously, it needs to be timeless as well. So you're looking to obviously create something that's going to last, and which ties into it being memorable, making sure that it stands out from what people are currently using, and actually when it represents yourself as Southwest Middlesex, which also ties into the 5th one there being appropriate. So you want to make sure that it actually represents something of Southwest Middlesex, and that you're not falsifying anything or any long line means of that. So after we've actually created a logo, we went through a secret ballot, and we actually brought in important members from the community to actually cast a vote. So it was everything was non-biased and presented in a way to make sure that votes were calculated and everything was even and fair. So from there, we were narrowed down the possibility of having logos that were first presented in black and white, to establish, just make sure that we're on the same elements and focusing on those designs elements of the logo. So from there, we actually narrowed down to 4, and then from those 4 logos, we did the vote, and we were able to select a logo. But yeah, so these were the votes that came in, and Melanie can kind of go over and speak more to kind of the creative materials that we've created and have sent you guys. I think you're muted, Mel.
I always forget that. This is the branding and identity part of the presentation, where we're going to share the communication visuals that we came up with. So what we wanted to highlight is that we've created a brand where we can pull elements of the logo in throughout different materials. So as an example here, this is a shagbark hickory tree that's in the background of this branding and identity tile. So if you can think of this as something that you could use as a PowerPoint or within other elements, we're going to show you how this brand can be extended in different ways across different media. So as you go through this presentation, you'll notice the different title slides will have different elements of the branding within it. So this was the identity that sort of moved towards a favorite as we went through further stakeholder engagement. So as mentioned, we did internal stakeholder engagement and then also external stakeholder engagement with public members. And this kind of kept evolving as the lead in the selection process. So what we did was we took this brand and then started to extend it and extrapolate it into different visuals that relied upon some of these archetypes that we created. And we worked on different ad campaigns and presentation of signage and other things that we're going to present to you today. So if we go back to the logo really quickly, we just want to say that the abstract and modern identity was created to highlight many of the features that were shared with us in collaboration. So the beautiful sunsets are framed by the shagbark hickory tree and provide a representation of the Carolinian forest, and the agricultural lands are denoted by the rich earth at the bottom from which the crops and the plants are sustained and growing. And so this was how this identity was created, with those ideas in mind, which came from our stakeholder engagement. So as we extend this from the perspective of visual design, we start to use different elements of this identity in different pieces. So the letterhead, I think you have in front of you as a part of your packages. And this is an example of the presentation folder, which again is highlighting the shagbark hickory tree and its background as a visual element. And then the presentation folders, again, which you have in front of you, which we can do in different color combinations, but we chose currently right now this existing color, is another way that we can extend the brand. And then you'll notice within the cards, each of you has one individually, which would be a certain color, but we've actually created a collection of colors that we can, and creative elements that we can use on the branding. And so you will have a colorful collection of cards that can go through with what we call a variable print run. So effectively, you just run a print run. So Sheila can have 3 different sets of cards in different colors. So each person's card can be represented in different ways. These are the backs of the cards. So you can kind of show what they would look like when they're presented together, whether it's in a meeting or with another group of people. We printed some mugs as well. When we actually do final production, we would do what's called a laser printing, and we do have some minor refinements that we'd like to do on the identity to final polish. But we have provided an example of the identity on a mug for you as well. And then here's another example of a tile that has pulled part of the sunshine into the title. So again, if you can envision this in a PowerPoint template, these are the types of elements that you can put together for advertising. For tourism, this is where, again, you can start to build on the archetypes that have been defined for you as a municipality within your community. So for tourism advertising, we really want to pull together the whole nature and the innocent archetype. So you'll notice that the ads that we put together are all very innocent. That is the type of archetype that we're going towards that advertisement. So if you float through a few of these, and I believe you also have those printed in your folders, we are really building off the innocent archetype within all of the tourism. A place to be a child in the wild, discover a beautiful course of nature, take a train back in time, and imagine a world which sets you free. So these are all based on the innocent archetype. So for tourism, we really zeroed in on the innocent. For your economic advertising, we actually leaned in towards the everyday person. So we wanted the everyday person to be the champions of your entrepreneurialism. And so while we only pulled from the available photography that we had, you can imagine extrapolating this campaign towards all sorts of different visuals of people within the community running different companies and bringing together a collection of those companies towards your tourism. So I think we found the 3 images within your photo collection that we could use to kind of bring out that archetype, but that is the strategy that we used for your advertising specifically for the economic development. And then with your outdoor media and signage, we've worked on different ways that your media could be presented outdoors. And so these are just classic banner signs, which you see in a lot of municipalities. And you can start to build in some of the same imagery into those banners and some of those same statements. And this was an example of a truck, just because that is a very sort of standard municipal identity that you see driving around, obviously, within the community. So we decided to use that as one of the visuals that we presented for the branding. And then lastly is the signage. So again, there can be lots of different versions of signage, but this is an example of sort of a wrought iron signage that you might see in some of your facades in the downtown area that would exemplify the branding. Obviously, we can see this and we get very excited about putting this into sort of a more larger street level highway type of design, which would be beautiful. But for this purposes, this is a bit of an easier use to illustrate. The other one requires a bit more work and creativity in figuring out how you would do sort of a roadway sign, a highway sign. But this sort of exemplifies what we've done with the playground signage. So I think with this, that is sort of the collection of the presentation in terms of the visual communications. Obviously, when we're working on advertising, you can extend infinitely onto the different types of advertising and then into social media as well. For your growth strategy with your with the subdivisions and the people that you're trying to draw to the community, we would actually be leaning on a caregiver community, so that we would lean towards the caregiver archetype, and we would pull that caregiver archetype in trying to promote your community as a place to live and raise your families. The caregiver would be the third archetype that we would use for that specific purpose. So we obviously take the strategy and we execute across different mediums in different ways with different reasons behind the marketing and communications that we're creating. So these are samples of the direction that we would go for those advertising campaigns. And obviously there's infinite media that these can be produced on, and infinite ideas and visual pieces that can be created to support those archetypes and that strategy. So with that, that concludes the visual presentation. I know you have materials in front of you as well. Is there any questions or clarifications or comments?
Yeah, Melanie, we certainly will take questions from council directed to the chair, to Caleb, yourself, or Sheila. It would be beneficial for me to go back to a full screen. Is
Yeah,
that
of course.
possible? Yeah.
Yep.
Mhm. That way I can see everybody. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Excellent presentation. I like the visuals on that. Council, any questions you would like to direct to Melanie or Caleb or Sheila on the process and what you've seen? We will be watching your hands and please get engaged. Yes, Councillor Bartlett first.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, to either one of you. Just wondering what the average length of life is for a new logo. How often would they normally be replaced?
Mm-hmm. Yes, Melanie and Caleb, I'll let you answer that.
Yeah, within industry, you'll see iconic brands rebrand in different ways. I think FedEx was an example of that. There's some other shipping companies, Nike. Sometimes you'll see brands that do what's called a brand refresh. Google did that most recently, where they didn't change their brand, they just altered it slightly. With a municipality, you really want longevity out of this brand. I don't think you want to have a place where you're redoing a brand entirely. So I think municipal is almost unique in its longevity, in that ideally you never change it. And this identity can carry with you for decades. I think when you're creating positioning, especially positioning statements, longevity is one of the things that we look for when we're creating a positioning statement. So we call it a mind space statement as well. So discover life pure and simple, as an example, is something that we worked on. And longevity is one of the things that we think about when we're creating a positioning statement. So some of the famous positioning statements that you might think of are Nike. Let's just use that one because everybody's very familiar. They created the just do it statement, and today, decades later, they're still using that same statement to represent their branding. So you will see brand refreshes, you will see brand overhauls. Sometimes you see acquisitions in the market. So basically a brand gets, two companies merge, and then you see a brand identity get established new. But the idea is that this has longevity and that you should be able to use this for decades to come.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any further questions, Council? Mark, did I see your hand up there? No, you're okay. Yeah, Councillor Cal, please.
Thank you. I can really commend you on the homage to the barn quilts and the story that this tells of the fabric of our community, the nod of the shagbark hickory to our Carolinian tree canopy and the beautiful sunsets. And even in there, you see it as plant matter and I see it as a hosta, and we're hosta capital of Canada. So it really took some time for this image to grow on me, but the more I thought about who we are as an identity, the best that I can see this one shows who we are, and it tells the story of who we are. So I commend you. I think that the marketing material is stunning, and the way that we can take different components of our logo and merge that into the banners and merge that into our paperwork and our business cards. It's well done, and I was thrilled to be a part of this process. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kyle. Council, yes, Councillor Vink, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. To whoever wants to answer this, it says here that if we recommend this, there's a final phase. What is that final phase? Okay,
Melanie, it'll be a process where we go from here in the event, and should council adopt this recommendation tonight, what do you see the path ahead?
For the path ahead, we get excited about how we can use this brand to actually help you with your economic development, with your growth strategy. So what we want to do is emulate this branding and find ways to get reach out of the different media. So effectively communications planning, marketing strategy, and helping you have the tools internally to execute this branding actually without external help. In other words, creating visuals for social media that are templates and things that we can do where we can empower you internally to make sure the branding is executed internally. Because as much as it would be nice to have an agency by your side executing everything for you, we all know that's not realistic from a cost perspective. So the next phase will be trying to create visuals for you that you can carry with you and have that longevity. If I think of social media as an example, we work with companies to create social media templates, and then we teach them about platforms that they can use where they can use our templates to create different graphics and visuals. And so effectively, we're trying to empower you to create professional marketing by using the tools that we've given you. So that would be our goal within subsequent phases, is to actually try to empower you to communicate this brand across different media.
Thank you, Melanie. I think that was well answered. A follow-up, Martin?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Al. I had a little chat with Sheila, so I know the answer, but I think the ratepayers want to know the answer as well. When you change the logo or a mine statement, does that mean like the water tower, all the equipment owned by Southwest Middlesex, everything will have to be changed?
Yeah, when you do a rebrand, you do float through everything and change everything. I've seen your water tower. I have identified it as an item that you could brand. Obviously, it's a very visual element within the community. So when you rebrand, you are deciding, I think that was a decision perhaps made long before we arrived. I think when you decide to rebrand as an organization, as a municipality, as a region, that does naturally progress into a transition of all materials to represent the municipality or the brand.
Yeah.
So yes, that would be the direction.
Yeah. But
Now, some brands choose to what's called a rollout strategy, where they don't do that all at once, where they slowly integrate the branding. Other companies will choose to do a full unveiling of everything completed at the same time. Yeah. So that in and of itself, there's decisions to be made as to how the branding should roll out. And
Melanie, I could add that it has to be done in a financially responsible manner, and and within our capabilities and financial resources as well. But we certainly are. We certainly look forward to the day when all is branded, but it may possibly have to be. I'm sure it'll have to be faced. Councilor Bink. Okay. Anything else? Any other questions? Yes, Deputy Mayor Wilkins, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. Can you hear me?
I certainly can.
Good, thank you. So I just want to thank Mad Hatter and Sheila as well for all the time and work and effort you've put into this. I'd like to thank you for the approach to inviting so many community members to take part in this, and business partners, and I think even the members of the farming community were invited to take part. So I think you certainly tried to get everybody, or as many people from the community as you possibly could, involved. And I appreciate that. You know, this wasn't my choice, but the more I look at it, the more it's grown on me. And when I look at the package that was dropped off here today, I was really impressed with it. And I like how the parts of the logo shadow some of these different, you know, I don't know what they are here, the banner sign and different things. I like that. I really do. And honestly, I think you have captured our community very well. We are rural and we're proud of it. An agriculture community, and we're very proud of that. So I think this just kind of celebrates that. And I think all of council needs to get behind that. I think this is a positive, sends a positive message to the community. And I like it. So thank you again, Sheila and Mad Hatter, for all the work you've put into this. And I think you did a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you. Council, I'd like to go to Sheila, if I could, for a moment. Sheila, you deserve a lot of credit for this. I know we're giving Melanie and Caleb all the kudos here, but we know how hard you worked on that. In reference to Martin's question, Sheila, if I missed your hand, I apologize. I'm focusing on the counselor so much, I may have forgot you. But could you expand on that aspect of putting this on our assets? Do you have an opinion or kind of comment on that?
Sure. Because of the budget hits that we've had with COVID and whatnot, very unexpected. We do anticipate doing a rollout with this. So the things that we anticipate seeing right away will be our electronic materials. So your website, your social media, your correspondence, things like that. We would love to start using the package, like the folder, if we could, that we can use for new residence packages, economic development packages going to potential developers, things like that. Things like the water tower, we would hope to do as soon as we could. We wouldn't anticipate this year. We would want to work it into a renewal schedule, I guess you would want to call it. So let's say if they were planning to repaint the tower, that would be an appropriate time to take that on. And I think in our press release, we would want to announce that as well and just say that, you know, it may be phased in over time, just to make sure that we're not overextending our budget and just doing things in the most financially responsible way that we can.
Thank you very much, Sheila, for clarifying that. And Martin, that'll give you a more wholesome answer to that question. And thank you. And thank you, Deputy Mayor. Any other questions, Council? Yes, Martin, please go ahead. Go ahead, Martin.
Oh, okay. I didn't hear you, Mayor Allen. Yes, I just have a comment. Of course, it's well known that I belong to Southwest Middlesex Action Group. There's quite a few comments on there. And so I will be backing up what the ratepayers want. They seem to like the statement, somewhere special, someplace special. And to me, that's a better statement than the one we're coming up with, because people in Glencoe feel that it's special, which it is. Farmers feel that it's special because of the agricultural land. Bird watchers feel it's special because it's Carolinian forest. So there's something for everyone in that statement, someplace special. And like my parents always said, if it's not broke, why fix it? So I will be voting against this.
Okay. Thank you. As I said, there is, when creativity is involved, there is always a difference of opinion. But we will move on from there. Martin, you're certainly welcome to your, instead of looking behind, very often we have to look ahead. I will say that. And but we'll go on from there. But your comments are always respected. Councillor Scholdice, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. Will there be a budget presented to council before this is rolled out?
The cost of this exercise is certainly budgeted for, and Kristen, I'll let you entertain the information to answer Councillor Scholdice's question. The process that we know has been budgeted, and can you address the rollout of it? And as I say, it will have to be done in a methodical manner. Go ahead.
Sure. Through you, Mayor, I would anticipate that as it rolls out, we would include those amounts in the annual budget each year.
Okay, so yes, follow up, Councillor Scholdice.
So we don't currently have a budget on what this is going to cost?
No,
to implement?
We have some funds set aside. That is not, I think what you're asking is, do we know how much the entire project changeover is going to cost?
Yes, that's correct. I think we really need that before we move ahead.
And I don't currently have that. I don't know if, Jill, are you able to speak to that? Or Sheila? Sorry.
Yes, go ahead, Sheila.
Okay. Just no, we don't have an actual budget figure at present because of the fact that we want to phase it in and be responsible with our finances. We do have marketing money for this year that we would use, but not extend beyond that. So next year we would look at another phase. We would look at our work plans as we move forward and work those expenses that we can into our annual budget that we would be doing anyhow, basically. Mm-hmm. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, yes, it does. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
If I can add to that briefly, just having done this so often with different organizations, some of the things that you would be changing over are actually very simple things to create. So for example, an email signature, to be able to put an email signature across each person's inbox and make sure that you are communicating with the new brand electronically. Letterhead, as an example, is something that you might be printing every year, and now you're just printing it with a new graphic. So there are some very kind of, I'm going to call them low-hanging fruit of ways that you can get an identity executed very effectively at a lower budget, lower cost, if you will, for the first phase. And I think maybe, Sheila, you're speaking to that for the, the marketing as it relates to this year. Where you might get into higher costs is if you're trying to do tourism or advertising to attract people to the area, which I know is part of the strategy and part of the reason why you've gone down this path. But that can, lead to ad spends and other things. And there's also creative ways that you can leverage partners and channels to be really effective at low cost. And I won't get into too many details with that, but just there's ways where even within social media and digital media that you can actually leverage influencers and leverage key people to help emulate your story and your branding at a lower cost as well. So I think we can add a lot of value in making some of those suggestions, and just having done so many rollouts, we can also maybe approach, provide a framework for you where it can be a scaled, like a phased approach that scales out over time.
Okay, thank you, Melanie, very much. Just if I could, Sheila, and I see your hand there, your mentoring from Mad Hatter is extremely important, and it maximizes our cost effectiveness on that. But from a digital standpoint, the digital incorporation of that logo, it is our copyright once it is finished, and that is an extremely cost effective way to get the message out there through the digital formats. It's not all hardscape. It can be a digital footprint as well, which is extremely significant in this type of marketing. Sheila,
and when we also produce what's called a logo collection. So we actually create a collection for you where literally every version and variation of this logo is presented in a file collection for you. So you then can start using it internally on your own to create materials where you're not relying on us to create materials. Where you probably don't want to do that is where you're doing something that's very impactful, like your economic development advertising. You want to make sure that you're taking care, but something like promotional items, if you're ordering golf shirts because you're having an event, like all those things you're going to be able to do internally once we provide the assets that are needed for that.
Thank you. Yeah, Sheila, and then followed by Mark.
Yeah, I just wanted to back up on what Melanie was saying with a little bit more how it will affect us. The materials that will be coming forward will actually save staff time in producing the things that we do. A lot of the images and the advertising that we do now takes quite a bit of time, but if we have those templates and a direction that we're going consistently, that will save staff time for sure. There will definitely be a savings in the consistency that comes through in the messaging, things like that.
Thank you, Sheila. And Councillor McGill, your turn.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I agreed with the one thing Melanie said, that branding, especially with the municipality, is something you wouldn't want to change very often. I think she would agree with me on that. I think that's what she said. So if we're going to change, we have to have something that, the public's going to get behind, and that's significantly better than what we have already. And I'm sorry to say it, but I'm just not seeing that with this logo or this slogan. So I think I'm going to be voting against the recommendation. We have to get this right if we do it. I've talked to a few people that were involved with the process. One guy said, well, that's the logo that I voted for, but honestly, I didn't really like any of them all that much. And I think the slogan is probably the best of the three we were presented with, but there again, not really sure I'm that stuck on it or whether it's any better than what we have now. So as far as I'm concerned, this council has had quite a few achievements, but maybe this is something we should just let go. And if the next council wants to, they could bring this subject back up and make a change later. It's not something we need to rush into. And we shouldn't worry about thinking about how much we've spent on this process so far, because what's the old saying? You don't want to throw good money after bad. So I think I would be in favor of just stopping this process right now.
Thank you. All councillors' opinions are validated to put to the table. Independent thinking is not unexpected. I think in response to that, I think I don't want to simplify the branding process, but sometimes you hear the saying, you acquire a taste for food. And the more I looked at this, it had elements of youth. It was charismatic. And at first, just as the deputy mayor alluded to, I had reservations about it. And I share her same opinion that it grew on me as well. And for that, this is a process that is costing the municipality $30,000. We do not want to make light of that expenditure. And do we have a lot of time? We are entering, it's a very competitive world out there. We are entering a time of unprecedented growth. This growth will have to be marketed to the Southwestern Ontario market. And it is very advantageous to have an identity behind that marketing. So though I respect the comments of Councillor Vink, Councillor McGill, I certainly don't share them. That we have had a stellar committee, probably one of the best structured committees I've ever seen. Those people were, for a lack of better words, the movers and shakers of this community, of the Southwest Middlesex community. Very well respected people. Yes, I did not always share their opinion, but I do believe in democracy and the count of the vote. And the process was fair, transparent, and I can't say I share the opinion of the two councillors that are in protest of it. Did I miss any hands here, folks? Apologize. Councillor Cowell, are you okay? There, yep. Yep, I see a smile there, that's good.
If I want to add, I just want to commend all of you on your contributions. And I think the expectation that 100% positivity can come through a subjective creative process is unrealistic. So Mark, I think your comments are valued. I think if it's not resonating with you, those comments are appreciated. Having gone through the process, it is very challenging to get 100%. And you'll find that when we do engagements, typically, statistically, the gap just gets wider as we extend to more people through experience. And I will say the Discover Life Pure and Simple statement actually surprised me a little bit because it was resoundingly selected as the lead, with almost very few people selecting any other options. And I think we started with 8 statements, narrowed to 4, and then narrowed to 1. And that statement in particular resonated by quite a margin, which actually surprised me, to be honest. We're often surprised in different ways because as a creative team, we also have our thoughts and preferences, and we obviously try to keep those biases set aside, and we work strictly with the feedback that comes to us, and we try to really make sure that we're hearing everybody. And to us, it doesn't matter if you're serving coffee at a coffee shop, or if you own an agricultural business, or if you're working with a municipality. We really look at everybody's feedback and we try to incorporate that feedback. So I think from our perspective, one of the most challenging aspects is trying to hear what's important to everybody and trying to visually represent that at the same time as you're meeting the objectives of being modern and attractive and bright and inviting. And from a creative perspective, it's very challenging to pull all those things together into a place. So I have to say that to have a group, and I don't know how obviously the entirety of council will vote, but to have a group that has moved effectively very positively in a direction is a compliment to all of you. And I just want to share that that's a positive.
Thank you, Melanie. Those are gracious words. Councillor Cowell, I'm going to give you the privilege of having the last word here. I had scheduled about 20 minutes for this, and we are now into about 40 minutes. So you have the last question. Krista, please go ahead.
Thank you. It was mostly just a comment. There was many businesses who were involved in this, and the businesses were the ones that really ultimately supported this design. That was an overwhelming perspective. And the more I took the time to speak with those individual businesses, I was reminded of why we were doing this process. We were doing this process to support economic development. We're coming out of a pandemic. We're coming out of a resounding period of negativity, of just emotions that have really have been incredibly negative. And this whole process has been something of a celebration. I think the deputy mayor said that this is a celebration of Southwest Middlesex. And I think by supporting it, we're celebrating the businesses. We're providing that, as the mayor had said, this is an economic advantage that we're giving to our businesses and our community. And we're going to come out of this with a brand new face and a brand new fresh start. And what more can we ask for coming out of a pandemic? I think it's beautiful work, and I will be supporting it because I want to support the businesses and the individuals that came forward and gave their opinion. Because I'll be honest, if you had votes that said no, one of them was mine, and my mind has changed. And I think the communities can be too.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Cowell. Council, there's a recommendation before you. Sheila, I will give you the privilege. Any further comments? Are you okay?
Yeah, I can just want to say a few things just to highlight from the report, if I could.
Yeah. In closing, if you could, yes, please.
Yeah. Just want to say again that we were very fortunate to be able to involve a very dynamic and knowledgeable group in the branding exercise. They were from all corners of our municipality, represented all different areas, and they were all very, very involved in the whole process. And I know that Mad Hatter did comment how impressed they were with the contribution of all those participants. The comments made at the sessions, I was fortunate to be able to listen in on all of those, and most of them were very positive, and they were all encompassing for Southwest Middlesex. It wasn't any area in particular that they talked about. Quite often it was about our natural aspect and the things that are outlying that we maybe aren't highlighting enough. So our old logo did pay homage to our agricultural roots. But through that process, we realized how diverse we really are. And to have something as versatile as what Mad Hatter has prepared will really assist us in moving forward and growing further. Something that probably haven't said, Krista kind of touched on it a bit. I believe it was Krista, it might have been another member as well, but we can acknowledge the former Communities in Bloom Committee who really, in a way, helped form much of this new logo with the representation of our boreal emblem. So the shagbark hickory is there, the hostas, and most importantly, our roots. And I just feel that they had played a big part in this as well. So I think that's important for everyone to know.
Yep, good, well said, Sheila. Council, thank you. Discussion is closed. It comes time for examination of documentation. Yes.
Mayor, record a vote.
Yes, that'll be fine.
I just want to close off because I feel like if you guys are moving into the next agendas, I don't want to be a part of your private voting or discussions. But again, I just want to thank you guys for inviting us in to support. And I just want to let you know that we're looking forward to supporting you in other ways as needed throughout this process. So thank you very much. And I appreciate everybody. Change is challenging. It's always challenging. So with that, I will bid you adieu, and I want to thank you for having us.
Thank you, Melanie. You certainly are welcome to stay. Okay, you're certainly welcome to say. No problem, Caleb. Don't worry about that.
And just to
Okay,
add in closing as
council.
well.
Yeah, okay. Yes,
Sorry.
go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to just touch on it. It was a pleasure working with everyone. And as Melanie has said, that we've been a part of a lot of these processes in terms of creating change is definitely difficult, but doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad thing. So it was honestly great working with you guys. I was impressed with the enthusiastic and just overall commitment to giving feedback and participation, which is sometimes unheard of in terms of some of our engagement. So hats off to you guys, and thank you guys so much for thanking for Mad Hatter to do your work.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Caleb. Yes, the 20 minutes has turned into 50. I didn't want to shortchange this discussion. It is important, and it is a decision that could be with us for a very long time. But that being said, I require a motion and a seconder, and then I will ask Jill to take a recorded vote. Councillor Cowell, will you move the recommendation?
I will.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that, Council? Councillor Choi, thank you. There are no more questions. We are questioned out. Jill, at your leisure and at your convenience, call the vote, please.
Very well, thank you. So Councillor Vink requested it. So Councillor Vink, we start with you.
No.
And Councillor Bartlett.
Yes.
Councillor Scholdice.
No.
And Deputy Mayor Wilkins.
I just want to comment first. The mayor and I were both involved in the first branding session right after we amalgamated in 2001. And Alan, you will remember we went through similar discussion. There were members of the public who weren't happy that we were even doing it. When we finally decided on someplace special, there were people that actually didn't like it and made fun of it for years. And so criticism happens, and you're always going to have people that aren't supportive. But I believe this is the step we need to take.
We're going to have to let the vote progress, Deputy Mayor Wilkins.
Yeah, and I will vote yes.
It's extremely important that we did that. We've had an ample discussion. Continue, Jill, please.
Mayor Mayhew.
Yes.
Okay, and Councillor McGill.
Mark, you're muted.
Mute, Mark.
No.
And Councillor Choi.
Yes.
And Councillor Cowell.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you very much, Council. And as my introductory remarks stated, that it is not unusual to have a difference of opinion. We look at a piece of art on a wall in a gallery or a museum, and we all have our opinions on it. And I thank you for your patience, and thank you, Melanie and Caleb. And we look forward to the second phase of this, and we want you to take us by the hand and roll, okay?
We will do your work with great care.
Okay.
Thank you very much for having us, and we'll let you carry on with the rest of your meeting.
See you guys.
Council, we have a tremendous amount of business ahead of us. It's 8 o'clock, so we're going to make some time on this. I certainly will not impede any discussion on subjects, but we must really get to work here. The consent agenda is before us. I'll quickly go through these. 5A, the April 27th special meeting and the regular council meeting. 5B, Southwest Middlesex vouchers of $259,000. 5C, first quarter building report. Arnie, thank you very much for putting that in. $1,959,000. We appreciate that, Arnie, and I hope you're still with us there. 5D, elections, Southwest Middlesex representation, Middlesex County Council composition, submitted and received for information. 5E, municipal elections, 2002 update for information. Election accessibility report. And I'm pleased to see that at our last accessibility meeting, of which I'm vice chair, we have curbside assistance on voting, and that will help a lot of people. Councillor Cal, would you like that moved?
No, I just wanted to make a quick comment.
Yes, go ahead, please.
In the previous election, we'd heard from the individuals in Melbourne about their having someone come in and discuss voting with them. And I had the opportunity to discuss this with the clerk, CAO, Jill, this week. And it was described to me that because of the type of facility that they're in, it doesn't specifically qualify the same way that Babcock does, but that if we as individuals would like to go out and make sure that everybody is registered in advance for the voting list, that is how we can best facilitate that for those individuals. And if at any point in time anyone does need support, we are able to drive them to the voting station. So that was the information that I got out of it when I did inquire. And Jill, please correct me if anything I said was misconstrued.
Okay, nope, nod of approval. Okay, 5G, Trillium landfill update. Thank you. Councillor Cal, a question?
Can we pull that one out to discuss at the end, please?
Yes, we can. 5G. Trillium, and we have Greg on deck to guide us through that. 5H, Middlesex County Council highlights. And 5I, Middlesex London Board of Health update. 5J, we have Middlesex County highlights. 5I, Middlesex London Board of Health update. 5J, Township of Cremain, resolution over Bill 109. Yes, Councillor Cal.
Can we pull that out to support me at the end, please?
Okay. And 5K, Glencoe Animal Shelter. I received the news of Vicky's retirement when Jill brought it to my attention through an email. I immediately called Vicky, and we certainly wish her the very best. Councillor Scholdice, I see your hand. Any comment?
I don't know whether you wanted to pull it out. I just had a quick question on it.
Sure, I can pull it out. At your request, I can pull it out. And
Okay.
Are you doing so? 5K?
Yes, please.
Okay. But again, on behalf of council, administration, and staff, I gave Vicky our best wishes, council. Council, that is the consent agenda with the exceptions of 5G, 5I, and 5J. We will adopt those as presented. Councillor Cowell, are you moving that? Thank you. A seconder? A seconder, council. Thank you, Councillor Vink. The motion is to accept the consent agenda with the exception of the 3 items that I have just dictated. All in favor? Carried. Committee of Adjustment, Jill, there are none. Public meetings, there are none. 8 staff reports, 8A fire, there is none at present. And 8B administration, Jill, if you could walk us through the joint accessibility plan. Sarah Savoy is the author of this. She is a very charismatic and eager employee of the Middlesex County. I certainly just take my hat off to this girl. She loves her job and is just tenacious about it. Jill, I'll let you walk council through this.
Absolutely. So this is one of those partnership arrangements that's really effective in working together. So Middlesex County has a staff member who provides service to all of the local municipalities as well, in helping make sure that each of us are compliant with the legislation, and by actually helping to facilitate, as Mayor Mayhew was referencing, a committee which reviews items so that we can all work together to try and be better at being accessible to all types of people in our communities. So this is the Joint Accessibility Plan and the Annual Status Report. These are legislative requirements, but yeah, absolutely nice to see people who are keen and eager in their positions to help us do good work and do a good job. So the recommendation is before you that the report be approved and that the accessibility plan be adopted as well. And then as per the requirements, that this is posted to our website.
Thank you, Jill, very much. The chair is looking for a mover and a seconder on this, which will have questions following that. Is there a mover? Someone move the recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Bartlett. Seconder? Councillor Choi. Discussion, Council, through the chair to Jill. Any questions? All in favor of the Joint Annual Accessibility Report 2021 be adopted and approved? Carried unanimously. We are on a request to submit a minor variance. Stephanie, thank you very much for being with us this evening. It's just a pleasure to see you, and I didn't think you'd be presenting tonight, but we're delighted to have you. And if you could quickly walk council through this, we'd appreciate it.
Thank you. So staff did receive a request to have an exemption to submit a minor variance application within 2 years of a rezoning application as per the direction in the Planning Act. So staff don't have any concerns and do recommend that the exemption be granted.
Yeah, thank you. That was fast, Stephanie. Very efficiently done. Council, any questions? Yes, Councillor Cowell, go ahead, please.
I move the recommendation.
All right, thank you. A seconder for that? Councillor McGill, thanks. Last call for questions, Council. All in favor of the request? Carried. Thank you very much. Stephanie, we have a removal of a holding symbol on 6560 Riverside Drive, known as Arrowwood Farms. Please walk us through that.
Thank you. So staff received an application for a removal of a holding provision for the Arrowwood Farms rezoning, and it's also related to the site plan application. The removal of the holding was contingent upon the completion of the site plan agreement, including the registration of that agreement on title, which has now been completed. So staff recommend that council offer support for the removal of the holding symbol. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Council, any questions to Stephanie through the chair? Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion. Thank you, Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Bartlett. Last call for questions. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Stephanie, thank you very much. You enjoy the rest of the evening, and you certainly are welcome to stay, but I think you have better things to do. So you enjoy the evening.
It's almost my bedtime. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Take care. Thanks for being with us. 8C building. We have Arnie's report ahead of that, and thank you very much, Arnie. 8D finance, Mars for mayor, reimbursement to the mayor. This is a point where I've declared a conflict of interest, and Deputy Mayor, thank you very much for walking this through council. We appreciate it. I'm going to take my video off and I'll hand it over to your good hands.
Thank you very much, Mayor Mayhew. I'm just bringing it up here now on my computer. So, Kristen, you're up. Did you want to speak to this?
Sure, I can do that. I'm sure everybody's familiar with the nice, beautiful new historical murals up around town. That was a project that the mayor undertook in the Mars for Mayor project that was funded by Marilyn Buttry. So she gave $4,000 to the municipality to be used at the discretion of the mayor. And he worked with the Historical Society and members of the communities to choose which murals to be displayed, and then worked with Josh Lawton, I had to look that up again, to have them installed. So Marilyn Buttry donated the $4,000. The Historical Society donated $1,000. The signage cost $4,000. So that leaves $914 in that reserve account. Now the mayor also, what's not included in here because he did that on his own, was to install another sign at about $600 or $650 at his own expense as well. So what he submitted for expenses were the screws and hardware, an appreciation gift, and appreciation cash for Mr. Lawton, totaling $333. And that is proposed to be spent from the reserve fund account, the balance left over from Miss Buttry.
Okay, thank you very much, Kristen. Are there any questions or comments? Yes, Councillor McGill.
Yeah, I'd like to move the recommendation.
That's fine. And seconded by Councillor Cowell. Discussion. I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much.
Deputy Mayor, thank you very much for attending to that. Just find out where we are on the agenda. We are looking at 8D2, the payroll outsourcing. I'm going to ask Jill to speak to this. This was funded by the province. It's an initiative to increase efficiency. The county led the review on this, and it had lots of engagement. And again, we are trying to increase our efficiencies. Jill, I'll let you introduce this to council. And Kristen, stay tuned, because we may call upon your expertise on this too, and how it affects your job, Kristen, should this be adopted and approved. Jill, please go ahead.
Sure, I'm happy to. Kristen, it's Kristen's report, but I'm happy to speak to the overarching project, because this is something that Middlesex County and local CAOs have been working on, a number of different initiatives, and the funding that came through from the provincial government early on in council's term, you may recall efficiency and effectiveness dollars to be used for reviewing certain items, to undertake service delivery reviews. This is one of the areas that got honed in on very quickly. There was a review that was undertaken countywide with recommendations about how we might wish to proceed. And then with other rounds of funding available, there's actual some dollars to help move forward and implement those recommendations. So it's I think it's an opportunity for us to increase efficiency and work together with our neighboring municipalities and with the county. Kristen, though, I will turn it over to her, because she's been the lead on this, going along through the initial review as well as this part of the process.
Thank you, Jill, for that introduction. Kristen, please take the floor.
Sure, thank you. So, as Jill said, we the lower tiers worked with the county to discuss various options, and leading up to the RFP that the county issued, we submitted a bunch of information as far as what types of payrolls we have, what types of employees we have, the levels of employees that we have. And what we found was everybody's doing everything very, very differently. And as a general rule of thumb, the more you do manually, the hours that you're keying in, it just opens up room for error. And payroll's really an area where you don't want to make mistakes for your staff or in your government remittances. So this recommendation would allow us to adopt an easier time management system. So council submitting timesheets, all of our other staff submitting timesheets easily. They would be done electronically. The timesheets would be easily reviewed by the manager electronically and forwarded on to myself or, deputy treasurer in the event that position is still processing payroll, would finalize it, transmit it to the bank. It'll be some initial work to get our policies and procedures fed into the system so that everything is fairly automated, but I think it's definitely time well spent, and we would never find a better opportunity than when the county has funding to pay for a large part of it. So we couldn't do it ourselves, implement the whole thing ourselves for what this is going to cost us for this. I think you're on mute, sir.
Thank you. I think we've all done that tonight. Council, regarding the outsourcing of payroll, it is an important step in municipal administration. And are there any questions? Yes, Councillor Cowell, please go ahead.
I move the recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Bartlett. Council, please continue with questioning. Yes, Councillor Scholdice first, followed by Councillor Vink.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I see that it's mentioned that this will free up staff time in the long run. Will it result in us being able to scale back staff hours?
I would say, sorry, through you, Mayor, I would say this will free up time for staff to take on additional projects. For example, continue working on the asset management plan. We've got a lot of irons in the fire right now. We are implementing a Questica system. There'll be no shortage of work for the foreseeable future. We're trying to streamline our accounts payable processes using Laserfiche. So we have a lot of projects that we're juggling right now, and we're still challenged with a deputy treasurer that's position that's been vacant for some time.
Yes, thank you, Kristen. Yep. I know that you are maxed, Kristen. You are. It's like an avalanche of work that's been put on you there. I missed a question. Mike, was it Councillor Vink? Yes, go ahead, Councillor Vink. Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I was just asking about after the 3-year period, any idea what the cost will be at that time?
It would be, I'm actually not sure if they want us to divulge in open session what the proposed annual increase would be, just because it would be, it's kind of part of their tender package. But it is reasonable. County IT determined that they find it a reasonable increase each year after that. But after the 3-year period, we're not locked in anymore. Now, I wouldn't suggest putting in that much work and then not continuing, but the annual increase would be in line, relatively in line with cost of living, or what we anticipate cost of living to be.
Thank you, Kristen. Council, I think it would be useful just to share a piece of the conversation I had with Jill earlier today, that payroll represents approximately 20% of the workload of this position, so 15 to 20%. So it is a significant apportionment of the work. So with this, it will allow not a significant amount of time, but a nice piece of pie in the workload to be diverted to other more beneficiary uses. There is a mover or a seconder. Last call for questions. I'll call the question. All in favor that payroll outsourcing project led by Middlesex County be authorized with the investment of $22,428 for a 3-year period? All in favor? Carried unanimously.
Thank you.
Andrew Neely is up next. Andrew, we have 3 drains, the Edie Drain, the Mcgregor Drain, and the McCann-Nemeth Drain. Can you start the process off here?
Yes, sir. The Edie Drain Branch D, was constructed under an engineer's report from Spreet & Associates in 1979. There hasn't been any other reports on this drain or this branch since that time. There have been maintenance projects carried out on different branches of the drain. However, there doesn't appear to be any maintenance carried out on this branch since it was constructed. In March of this year, staff was notified by the owner of 4360 Glendon that a portion of his land that was within the watershed was too low to be drained by the Edie Drain. And April 12th, staff received a request under Section 78 to provide improvements to the drain so that this portion of land could be drained. Given that all of the landowners within the watershed of this branch signed the request form notification, and scoping seems to be unnecessary. So I think it's a reasonable thing to skip because they already know about it. And so that's why I recommend that council accepts the request filed under Section 78 of the Drainage Act for Concession 2, Lot 19, to reconstruct the Edie Drain Branch D, and that council appoints Spreet & Associates to write a report under Section 78 under the Drainage Act for the same lot and concession, and that staff contacts St. Clair Region Conservation Authority and other regulatory authorities to ensure legal compliance.
Thank you, Mr. Neely. Council, any questions to the chair, to Andrew? Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion. Mark, thank you very much. Seconder. Councillor Scholdice, thank you. All in favor? Carried. The Mcgregor Drain, Andrew.
Thank you. The Mcgregor Drain was originally constructed in 1946. It was deepened and widened in 1965. There have been a handful of maintenance cleanouts carried out since the last report. The drain is primarily an open drain, and that was a part of the report that I submitted, the map, that the Mcgregor Drain runs along Old Drive, going cross country under Dundonald Road and outletting into an existing natural water course. And it eventually finds its way into the Sydenham River from here. The analysis, the signers of the petition have noted that the current length of the legal drain does not provide sufficient outlet anymore. This is for a variety of reasons. It is possible that some of the sediment has washed downstream into the natural water course. And ultimately the new expectations or the increased expectations on municipal drains Municipality doesn't have the authority to do any work on the natural watercourse portion. And as a result, it is, because of this, a Section 4 petition is necessary. Best way to proceed is to appoint an engineer under this petition under Section 4. Since it is unknown the length of works, notices have been sent out to owners all the way to Argyle Road to inform everyone that this petition was received. If there should be any concerns or further petitions, everyone has the ability to bring that to staff's attention. It is for this reason that I recommend that council appoint Street and Associates to write a report under Section 4.1 of the Drainage Act for Concession 6, part of Lot 1, Mcgregor Drain extension downstream.
Thank you, Andrew. Questions regarding the Mcgregor Drain, Section 4, to council? Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Moved. Seconder, Councillor Cowell. All in favor? Carried unanimously. And the McCann-Nemeth Drain last, Andrew.
Thank you, sir. McCann-Nemeth, as council I'm sure recalls, this has come to council already. However, the county has submitted a petition under Section 4 to legally extend the drain upstream just enough to replace the existing culvert that is under Haggerty Road. This is the only way, the only mechanism under the Drainage Act to do this. This would be added on to the existing project that Spreet has already been appointed to under Section 78. So it is at this point that I recommend that council accepts the petition filed under Section 4.1C of the Drainage Act to replace the culvert under Haggerty Road under the Drainage Act, and that council appoints Spreet and Associates to include this on the ongoing report.
Thank you, Andrew. Questions to Andrew through the chair? Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion. Thank you, Councillor Bartlett. Second, Councillor Vink. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Naming of a newly opened street in Minimus. Deputy Mayor, would you be kind enough to take the gavel on this? I'd like to speak to it when you give me permission. Thank you.
Yes, I can, Mayor Mayhew. We have a report in front of us on naming the new street in Middlesex. And Greg is great. Yeah, Greg is there. Greg, did you want to speak to this?
I sure can. Can you hear me okay, Deputy Mayor?
Yep, I can. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. And through you to council, just the background of this particular naming of a newly opened street in Middlesex is further to the severances that occurred in Middlesex. The newly opened road allowance, which had the potential to be named Mill Street, required a different name, as there is an existing Mill Street in Southwest Middlesex. So at this particular point, council remembers there was a fair bit of talk that happened with regards to renaming new streets in Southwest Middlesex, recognizing veterans. So staff approached the local historian in Middlesex, which is Joanne Galbraith, regarding the renaming of Mill Street. Joanne provided some surnames for us. Names originally submitted were McPhail, Halpin, DeCoe, which is pronounced DeCoo, Lucas, Graham, Dell, and McDonald. As part of the process for renaming any streets, we need these vetted by the emergency services at the county. These names were sent to the county of Middlesex for review. The county vetoed Lucas, Graham, Dell, and McDonald because of duplicates. They also discouraged then the use of DeCow, considering the pronunciation issue. Of the remaining names, we also received from the local historian the basic information with regards to McPhail, Halpin, and DeCoe, as far as when their families were in Middlesex and their participation in the armed forces. or in any of the wars. And that information was given to us. So in the end, we had a couple different surnames that we could have suggested, and the team thought that McPhail was, considering the three individuals that were from Middlesex that were part of the armed forces, that this name would be appropriate to move forward. So my recommendation certainly endorses that particular naming of the newly opened street in Middlesex as McPhail Street. Since this particular report was compiled and put in place, there has been a fair bit of conversation go on with councillors with regards to the naming of this particular street. I'm not built into any name. There's a couple of reasons that this is in front of you tonight. One is that the street needs to be renamed so that we can have the people that are there building homes. They can't get a building permit without actual addresses. So this is the key for, the construction of those new homes in Middlesex. And, but we're not built into the name. I mean, since then, we've been provided first names again from the local historian with regards to, vetting those particular names. And like I said, we don't really have, we're not built into McPhail. This was part of the process. First of all, identifying, council, their interest in recognizing veterans for one, and then getting somebody from that particular area of Middlesex that could be recognized in a street name. So that's kind of how we are today with it. You have a recommendation in front of you, but we're willing to go back and vet other names. But I will mention to you that the people that are there as part of the severance that have properties that they want to start to build cannot obtain building permits without addresses. So that's kind of where the situation is that we have in front of us today. And I did receive those particular first names from the local historian there. And if that's council's wish, then we will certainly go through that process again, but we will have to bring another report back to council based on what the county tells us, that they would accept for these street names in Middlesex. So I'm certainly available to questions, but we'll go from there.
Okay, Mayor Mayhew, I'm going to let you speak first, and then I'll hand the gavel back to you. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor, for taking that gavel. First of all, I want to say that our staff did an admirable job on this. Greg went through lots of research, and even as late as today, Jill was on the phone to Joanne Graham, had a pleasant conversation. Now, everyone on this council has had second thoughts on an issue or changed their mind on a study they've done or an experience they've had, re-examined it. And Joanne is no question the undisputed historian. Joanne had a second thoughts on her choice of names, and she is extremely concerned about that. Now, I fully realize the urgency to get this done. Greg is certainly right that without a 911 address, a building permit cannot be issued. I would like to see Joanne submit several names of her choice, conditional on approval by John Eldon of Middlesex County that would have to meet his approval, and that we could proceed from there. Does it have, I have confidence that we could accept in principle a choice of names from Joanne Galbraith, and that choice of names be approved by the county, and that the street be so named according to the wishes of the historian of that region. And all of us have had second thoughts or second opinions or cold feet on something that we've said or believed in. And Joanne has found herself in that position. And I don't think it's necessarily a burdensome thing to ask, but I think that if the staff contacted Joanne tomorrow, asked her to submit 2 or 3 names, send them off to the county, and we will get that we accept in principle the choice of the historian, conditional upon the agreement of the county of Middlesex. And that's where I am with this. There's not going to be many streets named in Middlesex. It may be a long time before we have the opportunity to do it again. So I would like to comfort the historian in some manner, to respect that she has had second opinions and wish to have it quickly re-examined. Thank you, Deputy Mayor, very much.
Gavel Shores, Mayor Mayhew.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks once again, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Scholdice, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I believe Councillor Cowell had her hand up for a
Oh,
while.
I'm sorry. Yep. Councillor Cowell, I apologize for that. There's a glowing light right in front of you there, and you're just a shining light. But go ahead, Krista.
Thank you. I had a lovely chat with Mrs. Galbraith this morning, and I explained to her the motion that was made in 2019 around picking the names of our municipal roads moving forward, and the intent of remembering the past and the individuals who served in this community. And she told me a little bit about the history of Middlesex and how almost all of the roads in Middlesex are named by their first names. And she even mentioned one that Cromwell. Mr. Cromwell from Old England. And so I think that with in mind, I support the mayor's perspective of maybe coming back with a few more names so that we can hold true to the community of Middlesex and how they currently have their names done by first names, and come back with a list of ones that have been approved by the county. So that was the perspective we got. And I think it's important that we hold true to that community and what that community has as their own history.
Thank you, Councillor Cowell. Any further questions? Councillor Scholdice.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I'll make a motion to endorse your recommendation to have Joanne Galbraith contacted tomorrow.
Okay, contacted tomorrow to put in a selections of names and that they immediately be sent to the county for approval.
Yes. And
that should the county approve of a choice of Joanne Galbraith, that name be adopted. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, thank you. And that way, Councillor Scholdice, now Greg, I may be not following protocol here, and correct me if I'm wrong.
No.
What I'm trying to do is just expedite the inconvenience for the property owners, Mike, is what I'm trying to do, rather than have them wait. Go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, no, just through you, Mayor Allen, just I hope that, some of the names that are provided, that one would not be a duplicate. I mean, what if we get ones that are all duplicates?
Mm-hmm. Well, I trust that staff will give her some help on that too, Greg. And Councillor Cowell, thank you very much for your comments. I think that first name of Cromwell was Mitchell, and I believe that he was an honor guard of King Edward in the First World War. So that is, it doesn't have to be a surname of a soldier. It can be his given name as well. So thank you, Councillor Cowell, for that. And I think Joanne is especially gifted in history, but all of us at some point in our life require a little guidance in our selection, and I trust staff will be patient enough to do that with Joanne. It's been moved by Mike. Was there a seconder for that? Yes, Councillor McGill. Thank you. Any further questions? The staff will contact Joanne at their earliest convenience, and that the selection of 2 to 3 names be forwarded to the county, and that upon county approval, that one of those names will be selected at an expedient time. Yes, Councillor McGill, question?
Yeah, I think it, thank you, Mayor May, but I think it should be okay to find a name, because Joanne had suggested about a dozen potential names, about half of them men's names, half of them women's names. So it wouldn't have to be limited to 2 or 3 names.
Exactly.
Although if she would list them in order of her preference, that would help.
Yeah, and that'll be a conversation between Joanne and staff. And I want to thank staff again for their patience. And Greg and Jill, you have both been exemplary on this. And I'm afraid that extenuation of patience is just going to have to last another 24 to 36 hours, and we'll get through it. And thank you very much, Council, for your understanding. Jill, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, just for the motion, I want to be clear. It's working with Ms. Galbraith for the other additional names. We'll review with the County of Middlesex, and then it's authorizing staff to do the final approval as opposed to coming back.
Yes, that's true. Great. Jill, thank you very much for clarifying that. Any questions, Council? All in favor, please raise your hand. Carried unanimously. Thanks very much for that. And thank you, Deputy Mayor, for taking that gavel. Notices of motion, I have not been advised of any. Correspondence and petitions, Glencoe Agricultural request for exemption from fee charges of the bylaw. This council, just to introduce the subject, they're asking for a sea container, and many of you may know the circumstances involved. There currently is a trailer there with axles underneath it that's been there for 18 years. It's approximately 5 feet off the ground. It's used for storage for the fair. Some of the items in there are glass cases for displays that you see in the home economics display of Glencoe Fair. Other aspects of them are apparatuses for parking and things of that nature, signage, items for 4-H competitions, things of that nature. It's extremely important that they have adequate storage. They want it more attractive. They're enhancing the building through landscaping and things of that nature. They wanted to be very sure that they went through all the procedural aspects of getting permission to do this. And they are asking that the fee be waived. I think it's approximately $1,800. Jill can correct me if I'm wrong there. But that money they would rather see spent back in our community. And I can assure you, just as an example, at the last meeting I went to, $2,500 of ice time was purchased from the curling arena to sponsor junior curlers in this town. So your agricultural society do much more than just the fair. And we'll certainly open it up for discussion. Yes, Councillor, Deputy Mayor, rather.
Mayor Mayhew, I'm going to move the recommendation that the fee be waived.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor McGill? Thank you. Mike, I saw your hand go up, but Mark just beat you by a hair there. Discussion, I'll continue, Council. Any discussion? All in favor that the fee be waived to the Ag Society? Carried. And Council, I'll assure you that that money will be regenerated back into Southwest Middlesex. Unfinished business. None. We can move on. New business. We have had some items moved to the consent agenda. Krista, you have a couple of these here. 5G, Trillium landfill site. I think you asked to be moved. Would you like to speak to that?
Thank you. So I have two separate questions for staff, and I wanted to know with the questions about the election and the environmental issues. We read in the report about the elections that we could be entering a lame duck situation, and that would mean that we wouldn't be able to have a spending more than 50K. In this report, it talked about how we would look at potentially having remedial action plan coming into place in October. And I'm wondering if we would be at risk of having these large fees during this lame duck period, and whether or not the municipality would be at risk in not complying with the MECP timelines and the work that they want us to do, and what type of mitigation we can do if that's indeed the timeline that we end up on.
Thank you, Councillor Cal. Between Greg and Jill, we'll try to get you an answer there. Greg, would you like to lead off?
Yeah, certainly can. And through you, Mary Ellen, certainly Jill can talk to the lame duck period itself and how that would be applied here. I think from the correspondence that provided tonight with regards to the staff report, it was in response to council's direction. This is the correspondence that was sent to MECP with regards to the exceedances, as well as the transfer station, and the actual full closure itself and notification of MECP. So what we're actually saying to MECP at this particular point is that we need to sit down at the table with you and go through these particular items that we have, new well locations, the closure plan, the permanent transfer station itself. So I'm not 100% sure that we will be on that timeline, because we also are going to be going through a series of meetings with MECP here. So I don't know that that's as firm as what's talked about in the correspondence there, but our goal here is to bring something back to council once we've had these conversations. And it all depends on where wells are located, all that kind of stuff. This all needs to be vetted out with MECP, and they need to approve this stuff before we move forward. So I don't know, Jill, you may want to add something here to help on the lame duck end, but
yeah, thank you, Greg, very much. I know we don't have a crystal ball, but you've summarized that quite well. Jill, could you expand on that?
Sure. I would just offer that the restricted acts after nomination day, which is colloquially known as lame duck, that's only related to items that are not budgeted for. So we do have an amount budgeted for landfills as per council's direction and decision. So if we get into a position where there's new funds that are required, that are unexpected and not budgeted for, then we would certainly need to come back to council, and we will be mindful of that, Councillor Cowell. So I did appreciate the question. But as Greg said, we're kind of working with the ministry's timelines and what it is that they're going to approve to help ensure that we're trying to satisfy their requirements and be as efficient as we can with our own tax dollars.
Thank you, Jill. Any further questions, Council? Yes, follow up, Councillor Cowell, one follow up.
Yes, thank you. It was a very lengthy report that discussed many different topics, one of which was purchasing of groundwater rights. That's a scary implication that we need to consider purchasing the groundwater as a result of the contamination and the possibility of potentially contaminating wells. So it's my understanding that we would need to consider purchasing the groundwater to avoid any future drinking water wells be done in that area. I did speak with you earlier this week, and many of the residents on Trillium Drive do have access to town water, but you had mentioned that the one property that backs onto Longwoods does not. Is there any risk to their drinking water at this time, or is it just potential future drinking water?
Yeah, and I think, yeah, thank you very much, Councillor Cowell. And Greg, was that, it was a shallow, contamination was in the shallow well water. It was not in the deep aquifer. So I'll let you expand on that.
Yeah, that's true. I think we need to, just be aware that this would be a negotiation moving forward, and we don't know, exactly whether we would be negotiating water rights at this particular point. I mean, some of this is going to be dependent on the installation of the new wells. Because of the location of the, that was approved for the existing well system. So I would just be careful here. That information will come back to council, but, I don't want to, put the municipality in a compromised situation here either.
Yeah, I've mentioned before too, that some of these conversations I've said several times should not be in public session, but fortunately, there has been no evidence of deep water contamination, but we certainly, it is the privilege of council to ask for this to be discussed in committee of the whole on camera with a dialogue through staff. 5G is done. 5J, Councillor Cowell, a township of Crammon, resolution over Bill 109. Regarding fines for a process of a development, site development over 30 days. Would you like to speak to this?
Yeah, so the proposed Bill 109 talks about the idea of moving these processes along, and I think that's a great concept in theory. However, oftentimes we will see reports come to our own planning department that are not complete, and as a result, it sounds like with this Bill 109 that because of their incomplete plans, we are at risk of being fined or losing the planning fees. And so a very large subdivision or different planning applications could potentially have their applications refunded. And we just saw with the Agricultural Society that that can be upwards to $1,800. And while we don't mind doing it for an Agricultural Society, I can appreciate that the taxpayers would be pretty disappointed if their fees were refunded to a new and a large subdivision because of the challenging nature of a subdivision plan, especially with this will especially impact smaller municipalities that don't have the staff load. So I'd like to support this recommendation. And I would like to also add that our council is fortunate that we had the foresight in the budgeting process to hire a development coordinator, because if nothing else, that position will help support if this type of bill goes through unamended. So that's the only comments that I had for it. I worry about municipalities like ours that are smaller, and I'm glad that we had the foresight to help move this along so we would be less likely to be impacted.
Okay. Are you looking for an endorsement on the bill, are you, or?
Yes, I will move the
endorsement. And you'll move that. That's the point I'm getting at. Okay, is there a seconder for that endorsement? Deputy Mayor Wilkins, thank you. Yes, it's something like culinary arts. Very often the product you take out of the oven is conditional upon the ingredients that you put in it. And I think these site plan submissions are extremely important in terms of the quality of the information that staff receive. It can be burdensome had it's not. Fortunately, this council has had the foresight and particularly operations and our CAO that we have got the requirements that Southwest Middlesex want in terms of sanitary and wastewater management and our water capabilities. Yes, Greg, would you like to speak to that?
Well, just briefly to you, Mayor Allen, I do echo Councillor Cowell's comments with regards to this process, because, you also make the point of a small municipality. The amount of information that we're processing is just unbelievable with regards to these large developments that we do get. Anything from, the capabilities of our sanitary system, the capabilities of our water system, the release of stormwater, I think we all would recognize that, when we go through these processes and come up with stormwater management plans for developments, that it is a key part to living in our communities. And, the timeline that we're talking about here does really challenge a small municipality like ours to produce developments within those timeframes, because, it's difficult. These packages are huge and we get them peer reviewed. They have to come back. People have to agree. And, the last thing we want to do is hook people up to the sanitary system and cause issues for people that are presently hooked up to it, or the water system where we can't provide enough water, or, the stormwater management issues are not being dealt with in our community. So from my end, it's always a challenge to, work with these engineers and developers to get the right amount of information in first. And then secondly, to go through peer review, which is to ensure that, what their engineers are telling us is capable of working within our system. So that's just my general comments.
No, sometimes the phraseology, more homes for more Ontarians, is just a way to expedite the building. And there are some disadvantages with it, no question. Council, any further questions on 5J? It has been moved by Councillor Cowell and seconded by the Deputy Mayor that we endorse this. Are there any other questions? I don't see any, so I'll call the question. All in favor of the endorsement, please raise your hand. Carried. Councillor Scholdice, we've got you down for 5K. the Glencoe Animal Shelter, the letter to Southwest Middlesex regarding Vicky's retirement. Would you like to speak to that?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Mayhew. Very sorry to hear this. They have been exceptional to deal with. And I'm just wondering how this will affect our animal control going forward.
Okay, we're going to let Jill. Jill and I did chat about that today, and there may be some contractual information that we can't perhaps release, but I think Jill can walk you through that. No problem, and she'll certainly try to clarify the picture to you. Go ahead, Jill.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. So yes, like the mayor, I've received this and quickly called to congratulate Vicky, but also went, oh darn. So we had a good discussion and I have reached out to neighboring municipalities that also use those services. So we are tentatively working on a procurement opportunity that several of us may wish to tag into. So working with the CAO for Adelaide Metcalfe to prepare that document and likely share that with some of the neighboring municipalities that we're aware of and have already expressed a desire to potentially be engaged in that process. In the interim, we have the ability for our municipal enforcement unit, MEU, to continue with any charges. They have always had that ability, so they, as our bylaw enforcement officers, have the ability to lay charges if necessary. But it's really having the animal control side of it where someone is potentially gathering up animals and having a pound that we will be looking for in fairly short order. So I would expect that you'll receive some kind of a report in the not too distant future with a recommendation on how to proceed, unless council wishes for a report prior to that to look at providing this type of service in-house, which I'm not sure any municipalities locally do that.
Yeah, it is challenging, and I can understand Councillor Scholdice, your concern. I certainly understand that it is a vocation that is not overstated in our community. Animal control is a specialized field requiring specialized talents and specialized facilities. So we will have some work to do on that, but thank you for raising your concern. Any other questions on that? Thank you, staff, for addressing the councillor's concerns. Okay, we are county council and conference updates. There's been a report from county council given to you, and we can review that. Announcements, council. Are there any announcements? I'll just give you a minute to perhaps contemplate those. Seeing none, perhaps I can put a couple in here. I noticed on Facebook, there's a drive-by birthday party for a 4-year-old, Sebastian Scholdice, on Saturday, May 21st at 1. Mike, we certainly wish you well on that, and hope things work out as you wish. And we certainly offer our celebrations to this 4-year-old, and success in his drive-by birthday. St. John's Anglican Church has a roast beef dinner on May 25th. And Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, June 4th, Presbyterian pork barbecue. Is that correct? Okay. And June, when is it? We got so many of them here. Angie Giles has got one, June 11th, showing the debut of the Melbourne bank robbery is on there as well. So there's 4 announcements that'll keep people well fed and busy. Last call for announcements. Seeing none, we'll move on. Bylaws, a bylaw being to appoint a compliance audit committee, 16A, 16B. Bylaw to amend bylaw 211065, being a zoning bylaw of the municipality of Southwest Middlesex in regard to 6460 Riverside Drive. And a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council on May 11th. The recommendations are that they be given first, second, and third reading. Would someone entertain that, please? Councillor Bartlett, Councillor Vink. Thank you very much. That the bylaws be adopted as recommended. All in favor? Carried. Future meetings, council, are subject to change. Wednesday, May 25th at 4 p.m., a special meeting regarding the official plan. And Wednesday, May 25th, a regular meeting, and planning will be involved in that. And June 8th, a regular meeting of council at 7. Council, thank you very much for your diligence. It was a challenging meeting, but a very beneficial meeting tonight. Everyone had great participation in it. And we may not always agree with each other, but it was a meeting that we all got along, and I appreciate that very, very much. And I bid you all adieu. Good night, staff, and thank you for all your work.